A week ago, I went camping in the Appalachian wilderness. I'm a wildlife photographer, and I thought it would be a perfect escape. I set up my tent by a quiet lake surrounded by tall pines. It felt peaceful, maybe too peaceful. Later that night, I woke up to rustling noises outside. I thought it might be a deer or raccoon at first. But then, I heard heavy footsteps. They circled my tent. My heart raced. I felt them out there, watching me. I held my breath. I thought about grabbing my camera, but my hands wouldn't move. What if it was something bigger? The next day I went hiking. The sun was bright and I wanted to focus on taking pictures. But I kept seeing shapes moving between the trees. I felt a chill run up my spine. I couldn't tell if it was just my imagination or if something was really out there. That evening I set up my camera to catch the sunset. I wanted to capture the beauty around me. Then I heard those voices again. It sounded like someone trying to mimic animal calls. I never heard anything like it. It made my skin crawl. I packed up quickly and went back to my tent, hoping I was just being paranoid. At midnight, I woke up again. The footsteps were back, but this time they were closer. I felt dizzy with fear. My throat was tight. I wanted to call out, but I just couldn't. I grabbed my flashlight and slowly unzipped the tent. I shined the light outside. Nothing was there, just trees and shadows. Then I noticed something on the ground. Footprints, huge ones, way bigger than any animal I knew. They looked weird, unlike any tracks I'd ever seen. I rushed back into the tent and locked the zipper. My stomach twisted in knots. Outside, that rustling noise mixed with those strange echoing calls. I don't know how long I stayed there, but it felt like forever. My mind raced. I thought about packing up and leaving. What if something was waiting for me? I pulled the sleeping bag close. Then I saw a shape through the fabric of the tent. It moved slowly and it felt like it was studying me. I couldn't take it anymore. I shouted, "Leave me alone." Just like that, it was gone. In the morning, I didn't stick around to find out what it was. I packed up my things and left the woods. As I drove away, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. I kept glancing in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see something watching me. Even now, I can't explain what happened. I wonder about that shape and the sounds. Would I ever go camping in those woods again? I'm not sure I could handle it. The following week was tough. I tried to return to my normal life, but the woods clung to my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there waiting for me. I avoided going back to the park, but I started to search online. Cryptids, legends, and theories flooded my feed. I needed answers. One night after a long day at work, I couldn't stop thinking about those footprints. I Googled them. I stumbled upon a forum discussing mysterious creatures reported in the Appalachian region. They mentioned Bigfoot, skunk apes, and other things that made my skin tingle. People talked about sightings and strange sounds. It was unsettling but oddly fascinating. As I browsed, I came across a thread from a guy who claimed he had a similar experience to mine. He said he'd been out camping alone and heard those strange, mimicking sounds. He mentioned a specific date and location, right near the lake where I'd camped. My heart pounded. Was that a coincidence, or was there something more? The next day I decided to reach out to him. His name was Tom, and he agreed to meet. He had a wild look in his eyes, a man who'd seen too much. He told me about his encounter in detail. He described tall, shadowy figures just at the edge of his vision, and how the sounds had driven him to sleep with a knife by his side. As he spoke, a chill settled in my bones. I thought about the shape I'd seen. Was it another like Tom's, or something worse? When I asked him what he thought those things were, he looked down and whispered, "They're watching, always watching." He suggested we go back to the lake together. The idea filled me with dread, but part of me wanted closure. So, we made a plan. We'd camp there that Friday. When Friday came, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. I packed my gear, my camera, and some supplies. Tom picked me up and we drove to the site. The familiar trees felt different now. They loomed, almost suffocating. Setting up the tent felt surreal. Tom seemed more jumpy than I was, constantly looking over his shoulder. As night fell, I set up my camera, hoping to capture anything unusual. But as darkness surrounded us, the air grew heavy. That's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of rustling, just like before. My heart raced. Tom froze beside me. We turned our heads towards the noise and the sounds echoed nearer, mocking animals' calls. Then everything went silent. I felt ice in my veins. Tom whispered, "Did you hear that? It's just like before." Panic clawed at me. I wanted to bolt, but something deep inside urged me to stay still. Something wasn't right. I grabbed my flashlight, and before I could think, I shouted, "Show yourself!" The moment I spoke, a growl erupted from the darkness, low and menacing. The sound vibrated through the ground. Tom and I exchanged wide-eyed looks. And then, from the edge of the trees, that shape appeared. It was tall, far too tall for any bear. My breath hitched as it stepped forward. That's when I realized we weren't alone. It took a moment for my mind to process the shape before us. The figure was massive, standing easily over 8 feet tall. Its eyes glinted faintly in the weak light from my flashlight, 2 orbs reflecting an unsettling blend of intelligence and predatory instinct. I felt a primal fear set in, as though the forest had come alive around us. Tom stammered beside me. "What is that?" His voice was shaky, filled with disbelief. I couldn't answer him. I was frozen in place, locked in a staring contest with whatever emerged from the shadows. Suddenly the creature let out another growl, deeper and more resonant this time. My instincts kicked in. I stepped backward, pulling Tom with me. "We need to get to the tent," I whispered urgently. But Tom shook his head, his eyes wide. "Don't move. It knows we're here." My heart pounded in my chest. I didn't want to be here anymore. The surrounding woods felt hostile, closing in around us. I fumbled for my camera, hoping to gather some proof. But at that moment, all I could think about was getting away. Then with surprising speed, the creature lunged forward. My mind screamed, and I dropped the flashlight. The beam flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. I fumbled to grab it, but I felt a rush of air as the creature passed by us, too close for comfort. I could hear heavy breathing, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Run!" I shouted. We turned and sprinted towards the tent, adrenaline fueling our flight. My breath came in short gasps as we reached the safety of the fabric walls. I fumbled with the zipper, my hands shaking. Tom followed closely, his eyes darting back toward the trees. Once inside, we collapsed against the tent walls, our hearts racing. "What the hell was that?" Tom gasped, his face pale. "I have no idea," I replied, struggling to catch my breath. "But I don't think it's done with us." Silence surrounded us, an unsettling calm after the chaos. We could hear our hearts pounding in our ears, and the quiet seemed oppressive. Then, a soft scratching began at the flap of the tent. My stomach dropped. "Please tell me you hear that," I whispered. Tom nodded, his gaze fixed on the zipper. The scratching continued, a rhythmic inquisition from the darkness outside. I raised my flashlight once more, hesitating before I clicked it on, illuminating the interior of the tent. "We need to stay quiet," Tom whispered. "If it's out there, we can't let it know we're here." My hand trembled as I held the flashlight, directing the beam toward the zipper. The scratching intensified, then stopped abruptly as if whatever was outside had paused to listen. I glanced at Tom and saw the fear mirrored in his eyes. That's when I heard it. A voice, faint but unmistakable, mimicking my own. "Show yourself," it echoed back. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. What the hell was out there? We were no longer alone in our terror. I pressed my back against the tent wall, willing myself to breathe calmly. The silence outside felt tainted, like the forest itself was holding its breath. I found myself gripping the flashlight too tightly, my knuckles turning white. Tom's wide eyes were fixated on the zipper, and I could see his mind racing, piecing together the chaos. "Do you think it's trying to talk to us?" Tom whispered, his voice barely a tremor against the stillness. "I don't know," I admitted, glancing around the inside of the tent for anything we could use as a weapon. A spare camping knife lay next to my bag, but it felt useless against whatever was out there. "But it definitely knows we're here. The scratching resumed, more frantic this time. I caught a glimpse of a shadow moving just outside the cloth, shifting under the moonlight's weak guidance. My heart stuttered. Instinctively, I drew the flashlight closer to my chest, its glow illuminating only the small portion of our cramped refuge. Then the voice returned, its tone distinct yet wrong, mimicking me again. "Show yourself." The echo seemed filled with a sinister glee, mocking our fear. I shuddered at its chilling familiarity. It felt like my own words were turned against me in a cruel twist of fate. Tom trembled beside me. "We need to do something. What if it breaks in?" His eyes darted toward the entrance. "Listen, we have to be smart about this," I whispered back. "If it can mimic, it might be trying to lure us out." I paused, scanning the tent for any sign of what was outside. Then I leaned closer to Tom. "We should wait it out. See what it does. We can't give it what it wants." In that moment of uncertainty, I noticed something shift in the air. The scratching stopped, leaving behind a stillness that felt even more ominous. A poorly masked sense of anticipation hung between us. I felt Tom's shaky breaths beside me. My pulse thrummed loudly in my ears. Just then, the ground beneath the tent shifted, sending a gentle tremor through our confined space. It was subtle but distinct, too localized to be natural. I shot a glance at Tom, who looked back at me, panic blooming in his eyes. "It's circling us," I muttered. "It's trying to." The sound of something heavy moved just outside the tent. A rustle that suggested something far larger than us was prowling around. My heart raced as I dared to peek through the flap. The world outside was cloaked in shadows, and the beam of my flashlight didn't reach far enough to reveal the truth. Then everything went dark. The flashlight flickered, then dimmed before dying altogether, plunging us into a pitch-black void. I cursed under my breath, fumbling for my backpack. "Tom, I need the spare batteries. Quick." But as I rummaged, I heard it. A loud thud, like something crashing into the ground moments before silence returned. A rush of air hit the outside of the tent, heavy and foul. A new scent filled the air, musky and damp. My skin crawled as I felt it move closer, pressed against the fabric that separated us. "Whatever it is," I whispered, "it's right outside." Then I heard a voice again. Not mine this time, deep and throaty. "You can run, but you can't hide." The panic surged through me. There was no doubt now. We were not safe. I managed to grab the spare batteries and turned sharply towards Tom. "We have to go, now." My hands shook as I tried to fit the batteries into the flashlight. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was outside was waiting, watching. As I finally clicked the new batteries in place, the sudden light flooded the tent. I shouted in disbelief as my eyes widened at the surreal sight before me. Something on the ground, a dark figure unlike anything I'd ever seen, clawing its way towards us. And that's when I realized we weren't just dealing with a creature of the forest. Something far worse had come out to play. I blinked hard, trying to process what I was seeing. The dark figure was scraping its claws along the ground, leaving shallow grooves in the earth. It moved inch by inch, like it was savoring its approach. My stomach twisted as I felt the weight of its gaze, even though I couldn't see its eyes. "Tom," I breathed, panic wrapping around my chest. "We've got to get out of here." "Where do we go?" he rasped, staring in horror at the creature. "It's everywhere." Just give me a second." I could feel the panic rising in my throat. "We need to be quiet. Maybe it doesn't realize we're still here." As we crouched low, I noticed that the creature's skin glimmered under the flashlight, a bluish hue that didn't seem to belong to any animal I knew. It had a long neck and an elongated torso, but its limbs were what haunted my thoughts. They were long and thin, almost unnaturally so, like they had been stretched. The creature stopped moving for a moment, as if it was actively listening. The silence around us felt oppressive. I glanced back at Tom, his eyes wide with terror. I pressed my finger to my lips, urging him to remain still. Then a series of loud snaps echoed from the trees nearby. The creature perked up, turning its head sharply towards the noise. I took the momentary distraction as a chance to act. "Let's crawl toward the back of the tent," I whispered, hoping the thin fabric could mask our movements. We moved slowly, inching backward while keeping a watchful eye on the creature. Just as I felt we were far enough from the entrance, another loud crack broke through the stillness. It was closer this time, and the creature turned back toward us, mouth gaping wide, revealing rows of sharp, glistening teeth. "Now," I hissed, and we scrambled toward the rear of the tent, desperately searching for anything that might help us. Suddenly Tom shouted, "Look!" He pointed to a small hole in the ground near the tent's corner. From it a faint glow pulsed rhythmically. My heart raced. I crawled over, peering in. Inside was a small luminescent orb, pulsating with an otherworldly light. It flickered like a heartbeat, and the moment I reached for it, the creature shrieked, a horrific sound that pierced through my bones. It was furious now, raising its claws again. "Get back!" I yelled, pulling back my hand just in time. In my haste, I knocked over a nearby camping chair, sending it crashing to the ground. The noise sent shards of fear racing through me. The creature lunged toward the tent with a speed that was both astonishing and terrifying. In one swift motion, it tore through the flap, the fabric ripping apart like paper. "Run!" I screamed at Tom. We launched ourselves through the back of the tent, barely managing to escape as the air filled with chaos. I stumbled into the trees, but I had no plan. I just ran, hoping I could put enough distance between us and that thing. With darkness closing in, my heart thundered against my ribs. That's when I heard it again, that low, mocking voice from the forest. "You think you can escape?" And for the first time I felt something else. Something worse than fear. Despair. We were trapped in a game, and the rules were not in our favor. We sprinted deeper into the trees, the shadows swallowing us whole. I could hear Tom's footsteps lagging behind me. "Keep up!" I shouted, my voice drenched in urgency. I couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was still close, that it was tracking us with those unseen eyes. Every snap of a twig had me jumping. The forest felt alive, mocking us, as the wind whispered through the branches. "Where do we go?" Tom gasped, trying to catch his breath. "I don't know, just keep running," I yelled back. In my mind I could visualize a safe spot, a clearing, a rock formation, anything that might block our pursuer. But nothing came. After what felt like miles, I slowed, looking for anything familiar. "Tom," I called, forcing him to catch up. "We need to hide." We ducked behind a gnarled old tree, thick with moss. My heart pounded in my ears, but I held my breath to listen. Silence. I hoped it was enough. Then, out of the quiet, we heard it. A rustling sound. Not from the branches, but from the underbrush near us. My entire body tensed. I pressed my back against the tree, gripping Tom's arm. "Do you hear that?" I whispered, straining to focus. Tom nodded, eyes wide. The rustling grew louder, and I was about to suggest we run again, when out jumped something small. A raccoon. I exhaled sharply, feeling the tension in my shoulders relax. It scurried away into the brush, but my relief was short-lived as I remembered the creature trailing us. "Come on," I said, pulling Tom along. We needed to keep moving. We crawled through the underbrush, careful not to make any noise. The pulse of fear still thumped in my chest. Then ahead, I spotted something bizarre. A line of stones, arranged meticulously in a circle, with worn markings that seemed ancient. They glowed faintly in the darkness. "What is that?" I wondered aloud. Tom squinted at them. "I don't know. We should keep moving. But what if it means something?" I felt drawn to it, like it was calling out for answers. But the thoughts of that creature kept clouding my mind. Suddenly the ground trembled slightly beneath us. I exchanged a glance with Tom, fear swirling in my stomach. "Did you feel that?" I asked. Before he could answer, the trees creaked ominously, and a low growl echoed nearby. The creature was close. Panic surged through me again. "We need to get out of here." I turned to grab Tom's hand, but he was staring at the stones lost in their glow. "Tom, stop!" But it was too late. The ground beneath our feet cracked open, sending shockwaves through the air. The glow intensified, swallowing us in a bright flash. Then everything went dark. "What is happening?" I shouted, but my voice sounded distant, as if muffled by some unseen barrier. In that moment, an overwhelming feeling of being gravely out of place washed over me, like I was part of a twisted puzzle I didn't understand. I held on to Tom as the darkness wrapped around us, unsure of what awaited on the other side. I awoke with a start, gasping for air. The smell of damp earth filled my nostrils. I blinked, trying to adjust to the dim light around me. My heart raced as I took in my surroundings. I was not in the forest anymore. Instead, we lay on a mossy ground surrounded by towering trees that looked far older and more twisted than any I had seen before. The air hummed with an unsteady energy, vibrating through my chest. "Tom," I called, my voice hoarse. "Right here," he replied, his tone equally bewildered. He sat up slowly, a look of confusion settling over his features. "What just happened?" I shook my head, still disoriented. "I don't know, but that wasn't normal." As I rose to my feet, I noticed the stones were gone, vanished without a trace. The path we had taken seemed to disappear into a dense underbrush ahead. What had felt like a moment of panic was now growing into something deeper, a sense of dread. Tom stood beside me, scanning the area. "Do you think we're safe?" I wished I could answer that with certainty. "We need to find a way out of here." We took a tentative step forward, but the forest felt different now. The air was thick and the sounds were muted. I could no longer hear the wind or the usual chatter of wildlife. It felt like we entered a realm untouched by time. We ventured deeper, moving cautiously, when suddenly a rustling echoed behind us. My stomach dropped. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, peering over my shoulder. Tom's eyes widened. "Yeah, I did." The rustling grew louder and I wanted to bolt. But what we saw next held us transfixed. Emerging from the shadows was a creature unlike any I had ever seen. It stood on two legs, taller than Tom, with a taut, sinewy frame covered in dark fur. Its eyes glinted like shards of glass, observing us with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "Is that—" Tom started, but I cut him off. "Don't move," I urged him, feeling petrified. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't bring myself to take a step back. The creature sniffed the air. It swayed slightly, as if sensing our fear. I felt like prey, trapped in a predator's gaze. Then, almost as if it was deliberating, it took a step forward, nostrils flaring with curiosity. I tugged on Tom's sleeve, ready to bolt. That's when I noticed something strange on its wrist. A bracelet made from small bones. It didn't seem right. What kind of creature wears something like that? Before I could think further, it shrieked, a piercing sound that vibrated through the trees. My heart raced anew, the urge to run nearly overpowering. As it lunged toward us, the world around us seemed to ripple, like the surface of a disturbed pond. I grabbed Tom's hand, yanking him along. "Run! Now!" We darted into the underbrush, heedless of the branches that whipped against us. Behind us, the creature's growls echoed, mingling with the rush of blood pounding in my ears. And in that moment, desperation turned into dread, as I realized we were plunging deeper into the unknown, away from safety and toward something terrifying. Then everything shifted again. A blinding light engulfed us, leaving me disoriented and gasping as I braced for whatever was next. I found myself suddenly free of the blinding light, but the ground beneath my feet felt shaky, almost unstable. Dazed, I staggered backwards, trying to reorient myself. The air was cooler here, almost refreshing, cutting through my panic as I took a deep breath. "Tom!" I called out, my voice echoing in the stillness. Fear clutched at my heart. "Are you okay?" "I think so," he replied, sounding as bewildered as I felt. I turned to see him hovering near a massive tree, one so wide that it seemed more like a small building than a plant. Its gnarled trunk twisted upward, branches stretching like skeletal fingers toward the sky. "This place feels different," I said, taking a cautious step forward. Tom nodded, his face pale. "We just keep ending up in these strange woods," I tried to shake off the feeling of dread wrapping around me like a thick fog. "Let's focus on finding a way out," I suggested, forcing strength into my voice. We backtracked a little, following the paths that twisted between the trees, but each turn we took seemed to lead us deeper into an unending maze of greenery. The air was thick with anticipation, making it hard to breathe. I could almost feel something watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. After what felt like hours, I spotted a flicker of movement to my right. A shadow darted between some bushes. Panic surged through me. "Did you see that?" I asked, gripping Tom's arm tightly. "Yeah." He looked nervous but curious. "What was it?" Before I could answer, the air shifted again and a low growl reverberated nearby. Our eyes widened in unison. The shadow re-emerged, but this time it was more defined. A smaller creature that resembled the first, but its eyes glimmered with an eerie luminescence. "Stay quiet," I whispered, feeling the instinct to freeze kick in. I could hear my own heart racing, each thump loud enough that I worried it would draw attention. The creature sniffed the air, much like the other had, but this one seemed less sure of itself. It turned its head, revealing sharp teeth and a long, fur-covered snout. I recognized the bone bracelet it wore, the same type I'd seen on the creature before. Tom suddenly let out a small gasp, snapping me out of my trance. "What are we going to do?" he hissed. I wanted to reply, to offer some sort of comfort, but my mind raced. We could run, but what if it chased us? Or we could wait and see what it did, risking discovery. The thought made my stomach churn. That's when a sound sliced through the tension, a faint melodic humming coming from deeper in the woods, contrasting sharply with the growls surrounding us. The creature flicked its ears, showing an interest in the sound that distracted it momentarily. It took a step toward the source, seemingly entranced. "Let's go," I said urgently, dragging Tom along. We had to act quickly. We moved silently, slipping past the distracted creature. The humming grew louder as we made our way into the darkness, the air thick with secrets. But just as relief washed over me, something caught my foot. Roots, tangled and gripping. I stumbled, falling hard to the ground. The creature turned, eyes locking onto us with renewed focus. Its primal gaze sent a chill racing down my spine. Before I could push myself back up, I realized it was now or never. "Tom, help!" I cried out, desperately hoping we wouldn't be too late. The creature charged forward, and I braced myself for what felt like imminent danger. I barely had time to think before Tom lunged forward, grabbing my arm and yanking me up. We stumbled together, adrenaline kicking in as we turned to flee. The creature snarled, the sound low and menacing, echoing off the trees around us. "Run!" I shouted, pushing myself harder. The ground felt uneven beneath my feet, roots and rocks threatening to trip me as I sprinted deeper into the shadows of the forest. Branches whipped at my face, making me flinch as I tried to focus ahead. "I can't believe this is happening." Tom gasped beside me, his breath quick and shallow. We zigzagged through the brush, the melodic humming still pulling me in, giving me just enough hope to keep running. The creature was still behind us, its growls chorus with the rustling leaves as it chased us down. I risked a glance back and saw it leaping gracefully over branches and debris. It moved with an unnatural agility, like it was built for these woods. "Where are we going?" Tom yelled, his voice tinged with panic. "I don't know." My own fear surged through me. "We just have to keep going." As we ran, the humming grew louder and somehow more inviting. It was almost like a beacon in this nightmarish maze. Part of me felt it was a trap, but another part of me longed to find out where it was coming from. Then, without warning, I spotted a faint glow through the trees. My heart raced. "Over there!" I pointed, desperation giving me a burst of energy. We pushed toward the light, bursting through a thick cluster of bushes. When we emerged, I stopped short. In a small clearing, surrounded by glowing fungi and luminescent flowers, stood a circle of stones. At the center was a small, shimmering figure. It was slender and almost ethereal, with wings that sparkled in the dusk like fragments of a shattered mirror. The creature seemed to radiate warmth, unlike the predator that had been chasing us. "What is that?" Tom breathed. awe and fear mixing in his voice. "I don't know, but it feels safe," I said, glancing back toward the dark edge of the woods. The creature was still coming, its growls growing louder, but it hesitated at the edge of the clearing, as if sensing the magic that filled the air. The small figure lifted its wings and the humming transformed into a harmonious melody that filled the space around us. The air shimmered, creating a barrier between us and the advancing threat. The creature skidded to a stop, snarling in frustration. "We're going to be okay," I whispered, but doubt nagged at me. I had no idea what this glowing being was or if it could truly protect us. The growls intensified, and I felt a rush of urgency. "What do we do now?" I asked, looking at the small luminescent creature, hoping it would provide answers. Just then, the figure pointed one of its delicate fingers toward the sky, and the ground began to tremble beneath us. "Tom!" I shouted, panic creeping back in. As if responding to my fear, the entity emitted a blinding flash. I shielded my eyes, feeling as if something monumental was about to happen. Everything blurred around me, and the last thing I heard was a low, haunting wail. Then everything went dark. I awoke again, this time to the soft rustle of leaves overhead. Sunlight filtered through the treetops, illuminating the dirt beneath me. I blinked rapidly, trying to shake off the disorientation. As I sat up, my heart raced in anticipation. Was it gone? Had we escaped? The woods around me looked familiar, but the air felt different. Lighter, almost serene, as gentle breezes played with the branches. I glanced to my side and saw Tom lying sprawled on the forest floor, still asleep. Relief washed over me. We were alive. "Tom," I said softly, shaking his shoulder. "Wake up." He stirred, blinking awake, confusion clouding his features. "What happened?" he rasped, pushing himself up. I think we made it." "Made what? Where are we?" He ran a hand through his disheveled hair as if shaking off a nightmare. "I don't know, but it's different now." The sounds of the forest had returned, filled with chirps and distant rustling, far removed from the horrors we had just encountered. It made me wonder if it had all been a vivid nightmare, a shared hallucination, our minds collapsing under fear in the depths of those relentless woods. But deep inside I felt it wasn't quite that simple. "Do you remember that creature?" Tom's eyes narrowed, a flicker of anxiety returning. How could I forget? I stood, brushing dirt off my clothes, and scanned the surroundings. "I think whatever that was, it's behind us. For now." The thought broke my heart. We had escaped, but the implications of what we'd seen lingered like shadows in my mind. We exchanged a glance, an unspoken agreement to move on before doubt could creep in. "Let's find our way out," I suggested, starting forward on a barely visible trail. Our footsteps crunched softly against twigs and dried leaves. With every step, the unsettling memory of the creature loomed large. Was it truly gone? Had it returned to the shadows where it belonged? Or was it simply misleading us into believing we were safe? "Do you think it was a ghost?" Tom pondered aloud, breaking the silence. "Or something out of a myth?" "Honestly, I have no idea. It felt real enough when it almost caught us," I replied, trying to keep the uncertainty out of my voice. As we walked, I couldn't shake the deep sense of unease that crept back in. Somehow this place felt like a facade, a thin surface hiding something darker beneath. I glanced around, expecting ghastly eyes to peer at us from the trees. The pathway became tighter, almost claustrophobic as memories of the chase replayed in my mind. "Hey, look!" Tom spoke suddenly, pointing ahead. I strained my eyes toward where he was indicating, seeing a break in the trees. That must be an exit, I hoped, feeling a rush of adrenaline. However, as we approached, a chill washed over me. At the edge of the clearing stood a large pile of stones, their surfaces marked with symbols that seemed oddly familiar. I stepped closer, heart pounding. "This looks important." Tom turned pale. "What if it's a portal, or some trap?" Before I could respond, a low growl echoed from somewhere deeper in the woods. My stomach churned. We have to leave now. As we turned to run, I couldn't help but glance back at the stones. Something shifted in the air. Was it pulling us in? My breath quickened, quelling the whispers of curiosity. Tom surged ahead, and I pushed myself to keep pace. As we burst through the tree line and into the sunlight, hope surged within me. Freedom was so close. But just as we reached that first open space, the ground trembled again and we both stumbled. My heart dropped as I turned. There was a figure at the tree line, shadow merging with light, watching us with an intensity that froze me in place. "Run!" I shouted, and we both launched ourselves forward. With every step, a part of me remained unnerved, haunted by the idea that whatever had pursued us still lingered, just beyond the edges of my vision. We barreled down the hillside, fueled by adrenaline and fear. Yet in the back of my mind I felt a pull, a darkness that whispered uninvited thoughts. We may have escaped, but we'd never truly be free. After what felt like an eternity of frantic running, we reached the edge of the woods. Behind us lay the unknown, a tangle of memories and shadows that would never entirely fade. I paused, turning back slightly, half expecting to see that figure again, but nothing followed. The woods stood silent, closing itself off behind us. "I think we're safe," Tom panted, his face lined with exhaustion, his gaze still darting back toward the trees. Safe isn't the word I'd use. I shook my head, catching my breath. But maybe it's better than we were. With uncertainty swirling within me, I turned my back to the woods. "Let's get out of here." We drove away in a quiet haze, leaving the shadows behind, though the memory of the luminescent figure, the growls, and the depths of that forest would linger long after. We were different now, marked in a way that couldn't be erased, as if the wilderness had whispered its secrets into our souls. As we made our way home, I knew one thing. Every rustle, every shadow, every unexplainable sound would have me looking over my shoulder for a long time to come. And I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest would never let us go entirely.